This episode of Kind of Funny Gamescast is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron's the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. The mission's to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone. Not all ingredients are created equal. Fresh, high-quality ingredients make a real difference. So it's important to know where your food comes from. For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Greg Miller, you might know him from his, world-renowned Instagram series, Cooking with Greggy, is all about this Blue Apron goodness. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Gamecast. No S, just Gamecast. You'll love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So don't wait. That's blueapron.com/Gamecast. Blue Apron, a better way to cook. Cooking with Greggy, man. He's good. He makes good stuff. This is actually a great segue into the
Are we talking about Sonic the Hedgehog?
We're talking about diversity in games and potentially the lack of diversity in games. Here's a question from Jellybelly100.
Jellybelly!
He says, "What's up, guys?"
Can't relate.
So
I don't like jelly beans. I can't relate to you.
After seeing Marvel's game deal with Square that was announced recently, I got to thinking. Sony has a deal for the exclusive SpiderMan game being developed by Insomniac. Do you think that Microsoft will do a deal with Marvel or Square for either an exclusive game or at least a timed exclusive like we saw with Rise of the Tomb Raider? The Microsoft games lineup seems pretty weak compared to the strong lineup that Sony seems to have for the next 2 to 3 years.
I'd say.
So an exclusive from this partnership would be a huge deal and help fill a seeming lacking lineup of games. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Thanks for a killer show. Now, this is an interesting question because for weeks, I've been waiting until the dream team right here gets together to talk about Marvel games and what they mean for video games. Because this is huge. We've seen what Marvel and Disney and Star Wars have done to movies and blockbusters in terms of they're just being like put out at a high quality rate. We haven't had duds yet. I mean, like real duds. At the very least, these movies are good.
Yeah.
Right? Like even Dark World, it's just
It's
not
enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's fine, yeah.
But it's like, okay, cool. At least like
Captain America Civil
they're up
War.
there.
Whatever.
I fucking hate you. I fucking hate you so much. But in the last couple months, there's been a lot of news. Square Enix partnering with Marvel for an Avengers game.
Yep.
Being made by what team was
Eidos
this?
Montreal.
Eidos Montreal.
Yeah.
Who made...
Wait, no, that's wrong. Sorry. It's Crystal Dynamics is making that. Eidos
Yes.
Montreal is being pulled off of Deus Ex.
Yes. So Eidos Montreal being pulled off Deus Ex as a franchise. We don't know the future of that at all. And they are going to be helping Crystal with Avengers.
Yeah.
But then there's also rumors that they are making a Guardians of the Galaxy
That's it.
game.
Thank you.
That's the thing that is not confirmed, but there's been a lot of rumors in the same way that we've seen rumors of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which is all but confirmed.
Yeah.
When you start putting these things together, it starts to look pretty obvious at what we're looking at here. They put out that trailer for the Avengers, and it was very much just a CG teaser, like get hyped moment. Please be excited type thing. But it really was a message of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney approach to things is going to make its way into video games. And with franchises like Deus Ex seemingly being shelved to make room for this, that is kind of the level of game where it's like Deus Ex is like the low tier of AAA,
Sure.
Where it's like, it's up there. But it's like not selling on,
It's a niche
the
game.
levels. Yeah, exactly.
And that's what as a huge company like Square Enix, you cannot sit there and make niche games.
Yep. So
At least not with that development cycle, at least not with that investment. Mobile, sure, something different. Why not?
So I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on this. And I thought his question was a nice lead in too,
Sure.
because there is the idea of, okay, there's Avengers and potentially Guardians on this side, but then Insomniac's making Spider-Man. Where does Spider-Man fit in this universe? Is it all one thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it a Marvel video game universe, or is there the Square Marvel universe and then the Sony Marvel universe?
Sure. I mean, let's go broader than that before we get into the weeds on where we think the universe is netting out. And I think Colin and I have talked about this a lot. And I think when we initially talked about it, I think we were on different sides of it. I think this is a great move. I love this move. I love what they're doing. I always go back to that story of you and I going to see Avengers Age of Ultron. And they're like, do you want to come to an early Avengers screening? We're like, yeah. Like, oh, Marvel Games is going to have a presentation. We're like, all right, whatever. And we got there, and that's when Bill got up. That's when Mike got up, and they were like, hey, like, we have done games wrong before, and we're not going to do them wrong anymore. We're here. The first announcement is that we've partnered with Telltale. We didn't know at the time that would go on to be a Guardians of the Galaxy thing. We've partnered with Telltale. We're doing that, and you're going to see from here on out us taking this seriously. And we had seen when Disney got the Marvel license, those Activision contracts go away. Those shit, Spider-Man games getting put out every 9 months or whatever go away. And we didn't know what they were going to do with that. And when they came out and they were like Guardians, or when they came out, they said Telltale. I was like, brilliant. Telltale's good at comic book. This is before Batman. They're good at comic booky things. This is a great fit. This solves superhero action problems. That's why I'm always saying they should make a Superman game. That's awesome, and let's see what goes on from there. Then it was Spider-Man with Insomniac. Now it's Avengers here, and then what you assume to be is Guardians with Eidos Montreal. And I think the argument Colin and I had initially, and I forget if it might have been Telltale. It's probably going to come up more with Insom is using someone else's IP versus making an original IP. And I think what's interesting with this, people we're talking about now, Insom, Crystal, and then Eidos, is the fact that you're talking about 3 people there who have had original IPs that are awesome, that should be huge, come out and not do the numbers they should do, right? I mean, Sunset Overdrive, we can talk about with Insom. You can toss in Fuse or whatever the hell. Is that what it ended up being called?
Yeah, it was Overwatch and that was Fuse.
Yeah.
Or Overstrike. I'm sorry. Overstrike.
Yeah. Then, Tomb Raider, which I don't have an answer for you why the new Tomb Raider isn't a bigger deal. The argument always is they made these bad deals with Microsoft, so you get it out there, it comes out, it's kneecapped there. By the time it comes to PlayStation, how do you get behind promoting a game that is old? Old game is old. And then, of course, Deus Ex up in Montreal with Eidos. And it's the fact that I don't think original IP should go away, but I do think there's something to be said that we have these talented teams, and rather than all right, cool, go take another shot with Deus Ex. See if you can make it matter this time and not make it matter. Square looks at that studio and closes that studio down. They lay people off. They do these different things. I think there's something to be said for saying people want this. People want these kind of games, and not only do they want them, they want great ones. Mm-hmm. I'm flabbergasted that we are sitting here in 2017 and not every major superhero, has been given the Batman Arkham treatment. Like, when I'll never forget leaving that demo with Anthony Gallegos for Batman Arkham Asylum. And he was like, that was awesome, right? And I'm like, I can't tell. I don't know. I've been burned so many times, and we were doing secret stuff, and then you jump ahead, and then we're doing like just fucking button mashing fighting. I don't know. And when we got that game and you were like, oh my God, this is a love letter to Batman. This is a love letter to an IP that people are desperate for something awesome with. It was like, why hasn't it happened with Spider-Man? Why hasn't it happened with Superman? Every superhero out there. And the fact that we are here now and it still hasn't happened, the fact that Marvel's grabbing this and doing this, it's like, well, here we go. They are going to take over the way they took over movies. And my hope is that for an Insom to do this, for a Deus, Eidos to do this, for Crystal to do this, who Crystal, again, phenomenal with these Tomb Raider games. The hope is an influx of money, your team can still be big, and then you get to go do what you want to do. You know what I mean? The fact that Guerrilla just did Horizon, an original IP and all this stuff, it isn't lost that they've done Killzone forever before that. And that was a thing that, okay, this is doing well. Could do better. It's still fine. It's a launch thing. We believe in you. Different story, of course. They're first party, so Sony's not going to cut them and blah, blah. But when you're a huge company like Square Enix, like, you can't sit there and be like, all right, well, keep fucking taking shots. Tomb Raider is always going to be a thing for them, but how they do it and how that works is different. I think this is just a brilliant move, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as a fan of comic books, comic book movies, comic book characters, and also comic book games, I'm very excited to see these very talented teams work on games and what we can get from that. Because it's like, love Lara Croft, Tomb Raider is great, but the idea of it being Iron Man, I'm like, oh, I am more excited about that. I think that's cool, and I'd love to see what they do on that level. But in addition to this stuff, there's Marvel vs. Capcom, which no one ever saw that coming back for a 4th installment. Like, MVC 1 and 2, huge deals. MVC 3, it came back and surprised a lot of people, but people didn't love it. The fighting game community wasn't on it as much as they were with 1 and specifically 2. But the fact that we're getting another one, like, that's a game that was caught in licensing hell. So this is Marvel being like, we're fixing this shit, getting the licenses where they need to be, and like, all right, Capcom hasn't fucked this up, so we're going to give them another shot. And I really think that that's a smart move, and the fact that we're getting Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite so soon is telling that they want to get this ball rolling. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 specifically introduced me to so many Marvel characters that I didn't even know. And it reminds me of Smash Brothers in the way where it's like there is all these classic characters, and you were very familiar with a couple of them, like Wolverine and Spider-Man. I don't know who Thanos is. I learned Thanos because of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And getting that out, introducing video game players, gamers, to this roster of characters, and then obviously they're already familiar because of the movies and all this shit. It's like these kids know who Black Panther is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't have before. Now Black Panther will probably be in the Avengers game, at least to some extent, right?
Sure.
I'm most interested that they're coming out of the gates, seemingly, with Guardians and Avengers. That's a lot of characters.
Yeah.
That's a lot of gameplay styles. And I wonder, I guess Spider-Man's the one kind of outlier, which is smart, right? Like what other Marvel character is a Batman level character that can own his
solo
own
guy
game,
who needs to
right?
go out and do this
Like
stuff,
I feel like an argument could be made for Wolverine,
Yeah.
maybe Iron Man at this point, but
Sure,
at the
Cap.
same
I mean, you
time,
could do it, but I mean, like those guys
Avengers.
are Avengers.
Yeah.
You assume that, and like this could easily. I mean, like it's to your one of your first points of like, is this all in the same universe and stuff? It's like that sounds crazy, but it isn't, and that's because that's how movies used to sound. That sounds crazy. They're gonna be all in the same thing. If you have whichever game hits first, who fucking knows? Easter egg where Spider-Man swings in at the end or whatever. That's fucking rad. I mean, I don't think you'll see that. I think they will be separate universes because I think they need to do that with different developers, different publishers. Like, there's so much happening. Granted, they're all Marvel properties, but I still think that's a lot to be like, all right, Crystal, somehow kick it to Insomniac and like they talk to each other and make that not be weird.
So, Colin, I'm really interested in what you think about what this is going to do to franchises like Deus Ex and all that.
Well, I mean, I think, Deus Ex is fine. Deus Ex will come back, and Square Enix owns that IP, so they can get someone else to work on it, even outside in a second party perspective. But to me, as I've marinated on this kind of deal, it's a smart deal. It's also the deal of least resistance for everyone involved. If Marvel was actually truly, truly smart, they'd use their money and their power to make their own studios that would make these games. So I think that using this will cost them less money. They will therefore make more money. And can contract all sorts of different unique and interesting things. I think the SpiderMan deal with them, like the guy asked about Xbox exclusivity, I doubt it. I think that the reason that I think it's pretty obvious why PlayStation scored a Spider-Man exclusive. And I wouldn't be super surprised if in the family of Sony, that's like part of the quid pro quo that's going to get Spider-Man out of that universe, like out of their hands. So I think that there's way more to that deal than a lot of people are talking about, and I just don't think we know the details of it. That's too strange to me. To be anything to be a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think that's part of the exit strategy for Spider-Man getting that. For Marvel being like, we're gonna take him back now.
You've had your chance, Sony.
And I don't think Sony Pictures obviously have a pretty tumultuous kind of few years. So I don't think that they might be able to get a lump sum of money, whatever it might be. I am personally there's two things. I feel bad for DC. The DC has a terrible. I mean, compared to Marvel, is a terrible stable of characters. They have a few characters that are really, really important, like Batman, Superman, right? Like and a couple others, but like Aquaman gives a flying fuck about any of these characters. But in games, it was in 2009 when Arkham Asylum came out and really shook the idea of a superhero game up and really gave us. I mean, not that I know it too deeply, but really the first truly AAA superhero game, I would say. I would
agree with that.
And
I do one quick aside. I do want to give a shout out to
Spider-Man 2.
Oh well, no, Jesus, my balloon. I was gonna say Injustice. That's I know not the same, but I haven't mentioned it at all. We haven't mentioned it all. I just want to say. Injustice.
But it reminds me of Batman Begins and kind of the trend of DC making great movies and then dropping the ball, and then they made great games and they dropped the ball, and it's like, they don't have the stable to proliferate the way Marvel does. So Marvel was very smart to identify these things in movies and then identify these things with games. I don't necessarily agree with the way they're going about it. I think this will pay greater dividends if you can bring it all internal. And I do think it's a huge mistake that they didn't create a couple studios to do these games. Like they have plenty of money. They can attract all sorts of talent. They can approach people from all over the place and really controlled it.
But isn't that like Epic Mickey? Right.
That's my counter argument to it all is that Disney did this. Like, you know what I mean? This is Marvel, but it's still Disney.
Well, old Disney did, like Disney pre-Marvel did this. Sure. Like this is not. I mean, Epic Mickey's 9 years old.
Sure,
or 8 years old.
I'm not saying that's the quality and the da 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 da. I mean, they had the Pirates game everybody thought looked good and da da da. I think this goes back to what we were just talking about on the Game Over Greggy show or whatever, but I mean about playing to your passions and whatever. I don't think there's anything wrong with Disney / Marvel being like, we want awesome games and we want awesome games now, and we don't want to incubate a studio and build out a team and worry about if they're going to do it and then see them get their sea legs and figure all these blah, blah, blah. I love the idea that they've gone through and been like, Tomb Raider was a great game, and Deus Ex was a great game, and Sunset Overdrive was a great game, and these are teams that are amazing. They're just trying to work with things that aren't necessarily resonating with people. We resonate with people. Let's get the best people in here to work on it.
Right, but this the counter argument to that is that this gives, again, this is the path of least resistance that will give us give them the best possible product. This stymies their ability to grow the brand. Square Enix is not going to make only Marvel games. At some point, like, you know, is Marvel just going to treat Square Enix's studios as a first party relationship? Is Insomniac now just going to make Marvel games? In other words, like, this seems to be one-off things that might, you know, that probably involve lump sum payments to the studios to keep them alive, maybe points on the back end for how well the games do or how well the games score, I'm sure. But Marvel doesn't own, you know, the studios that make these things and has only a limited amount of control over them. And the inverse is actually more important, that you know, the studios have other things to worry about, and they're going to start making other games or whatever. So these are going to be one-off kind of shots into the dark. And I would be surprised if Insomniac makes more than one Spider-Man game. Like, I would be surprised because this is Insomniac specifically, like, they were fucking obsessed with their own IP, and now they're not anymore. Like, I'm sorry, like, that's still their directive there, and like this seems to be a thing to keep the lights on so that they can do those kinds of other things.
I think the contracts out there have to state how many games there are, where the options are to get in and out of a clause, what that's going to be. I don't think Marvel would ever enter into these conversations and say we're going to do one-off things. I think it's the fact of, yeah, their money gets in there, and there is the Spider-Man team, and then there are teams working on other stuff, and it's like swing shift. Like, when somebody does burn out and they don't want to do Spider-Man 2 or whatever, they get to move off, but there's still Spider-Man 2 happening.
I guess I look at, you know, the situation with Crystal Dynamics just going to make 3 Marvel games in the next 10 years. Like, I don't think so. Eidos Montreal is just going to make 3 or 2 or 3 Marvel.
That's why you see Crystal and Eidos doing this weird thing for Shadow the Tomb Raider, whatever it is. I mean, like, there's something going on there to keep everybody going. But I think it is. Think about it this way too. These are studios that are underappreciated, respected, I think, on the mainstream culture. And I think you're talking about that. I think when the accolades and sales and money and awards start pouring in for if they nail Spider-Man and Avengers and all that different stuff, I'm like, yeah, they're going to make 2 more of those. They're going to be fucking all over that.
Maybe. I mean, I look at that again. Marvel gets the accolades. So the studios, yeah, they made the games, but they don't own the games. They don't own the IP. They don't have any control over anything that's happening with them. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the first half of it makes great sense. Let's get these studios, let's pay them money, and they'll make great games. I have no doubt that all these games will be great. But it's the latter half, the years 6 through 10, where it's like you could have just invested in studios that could do these games and actually control the entire scenario in perpetuity. It would have just taken a couple more years of preparation. That's it. If Marvel is so confident in its slate of movies and what it's doing, then it shouldn't matter. You know, that it's going to take a couple of years.
But it would have taken a couple more years for an unproven product. That's the thing.
But it wouldn't be unproven because they would be able to get, like, just because a studio is being made, it reminds me of, like, oh God, what's a good example? I don't know. Well, like, they're not just some fly-by-night operation. They could have gone and gotten anyone they wanted. They could have literally just gotten anybody that they wanted. And it would have been harder I guess what I'm saying is it's easier. This deal is easier in the front and it's going to be harder in the back end. I would have put the difficulty in the beginning and been like, no, like, we're a new Marvel, we're a new Disney. We have this great shit going on, because it wouldn't, I mean, not that I don't know a goddamn thing about movie production, but my assumption is that Marvel Studios and Disney and all these guys are the ones that produce all the games, right? Or the movies, right? It's like, it's the same silo. They have different producers and directors, but it's the same silo of production, you would have to assume. It's not like they're going to Paramount and being like, you guys make these 2 movies, and
you're working with different production companies.
Right, well, that's what I just said. Like, but it's silo, but you're working with now different in gaming. You're working with different publishers. You're working with different. It's very convoluted and complicated. It's going to make it much harder in the back end. I believe that, but I don't think the products are going to suffer. What I'm wondering is if the longevity of the products will be there, because now they're going to, like, say Insomniac. You know, my assumption is that Insomniac got paid a lump sum for Spider-Man. I can't imagine, and Sony did really. I can't imagine that they're going to make much more money than you know, maybe like some incremental things based on sales. But this is clearly a lump sum front payment. We get more money on deliverables and stuff like that. But what happens when Insomniac's like, well, we see a window for our own IP, and you might want Spider-Man. No one's going to make this game as the sequel as well as us, but we're not making it. You know, that's when the problems are going to erupt. and it's not a huge problem because do we need another Spider-Man game? Probably not. But it's just something to think about. I think that they made a smart and shrewd move. I just think that they could have been smarter and could have been shrewder. Because I certainly would want control. Because now they have to employ a bunch of producers that go to and deploy to all these studios, and you could have just cut that whole level out. You know?
Well, I think that's their level, though. I think that's their investment is in those producers, in the visionaries that are like, all right, we're going to make sure that we got the fighting game over with Capcom, we got the story-based stuff with Telltale, we got the more third-person action covered in multiple veins over here, here, and here. And I think it's kind of like saturating the market from all angles in a way that if it was their own studio, they'd only be able to focus on so many things at once. And they could have done that and a couple of the other things, but I think that's when it's like you need to either focus on making the games or focus on managing the other people making the games. And it's interesting, though, to look at this because it is kind of the anti-argument to their movie strategy where they sold off all the rights to their characters to Fox and who's the other
Sony.
one? Fox and Sony to make the movies and stuff, and then it fucked them in the long run because they should have just done it themselves, but they couldn't have done it themselves without doing it with the other people first. I think that's what we're seeing with the video games now is that they are not able to just come out the gate and make great games. They can come out the gate and make pretty good games, which fucks the entire roadmap.
I guess it seems. I mean, this is the strategy that Disney is using with Star Wars too. So it's not a huge surprise. They blew up games that were almost done in order to get their vision out there, and it seems like they want to have a sort of agnostic kind of relationship with publishers and studios and
I mean, that's
and hardware. But
very interesting thing too with Star Wars added. So now all of a sudden it's EA, Crystal, Eidos Montreal, Insomniac, like all these different teams working on Marvel and Star Wars properties.
Right, but the Star Wars thing to me is way more comprehensible. Simply because it's one publisher, So now, and the publishers, the studios are making the Star Wars games are owned by that publisher. So now, it's way. I mean, to me, that's way simpler. And not that it would have made most sense, but you could have, since they're working so intimately with Square Enix, you could have just been like, Square Enix is going to do them all, and that would have actually even made more sense. Because I am super curious, like how else this will evolve. Only 3 publishers are involved in this right now, but it could. So it's Capcom, Sony, and Square Enix, but it could grow in scope and size. But when you talk about
Telltale.
and Telltale, so 4. When you talk about the core Star Wars games, there's one publisher. That's an easier silo to comprehend, and I don't know. I think I'm pretty confident you're going to see that play out, but it's not going to be anytime soon. I mean, this is going to be long after those games come out. So if we're still doing the show in 5 years, we can certainly cover it at that time.
I think in this climate, there's no way they entered into contracts for one-offs. There has to be clauses in there that this is a trilogy of Spider-Man games, or if it sells this well, you do this, da-da-da-da.
We'll see.
We will.
What's up there? No. I was going to say, hey there. Then I said, what's up there? That was weird. Hey, anyways, you just watched some awesome piece of content over here on Kind of Funny Games. And when I say awesome, I mean it was probably okay. So you can click right here to subscribe to get way more okay content, or you can click here to get, more content from Kind of Funny, our other channel that's just as okay as this one, if not a little bit worse, because, we're pretty game-centric. I want to get that one better, though. Like, this one's beating it now on, subscribers, and, that's kind of sad to me. So help people like me not be sad.